It's time for Animaniacs, and we're zany to the max. So just sit back and relax, you'll laugh till you collapse. We're Animaniacs. Come join the Warner Brothers
and the Warner Sister Dot.
Just for fun we run around the Warner movie lot. They lock us in the tower whenever we get caught, but we break loose and bend the moose, and now you know the plot. We're Animaniacs. Dot is cute and Yakko yaks. Wacko packs away the snacks while Bill Clinton plays the sax. We're Animaniacs. Meet Pinky and the Brain who want to rule the universe. Put feathers flock together, Slappy whacks them with her purse. Buttons chases Mindy while Rita sings a verse. The writer's script, we have no script, why bother to rehearse? We're Animaniacs. We have pay-or-play contracts. We're zany to the max, there's baloney in our slacks. We're Animani, totally insane.
Here's a show's naming.
Animaniacs, those are the facts.
It's the Freakacast, talking video games and Lego. It's the Freakacast, cartoons and superheroes. With Andrew the Idea Man and Matt the Builder, we're gonna make a show that's killer. Freaks in, freaks out.
It's time for Andrew and the Matt. And we ate and then we sat. We'll talk a little this and that. Oh no, look, there is a rat. It's Andrew and the Matt.
The Freakacast.
Yay!
And if you couldn't tell what that was, don't worry, we'll clue you in in just a sec.
If you don't know, really, where have you been for the last 15 years?
I mean, really, we ought to reach through the interwebs and slap you, but
Yes.
that technology doesn't exist yet, but we'll get there. Anyway, as that delightful little opening clued you in, we are the Freakacast, and I be the Andrew.
And I be the Matthew.
And we are doing pretty good. We had some great episodes thus far. I think the last thing we had up was the Super Mario Brothers podcast, which was fun for me.
Yes.
Maybe it's fun for you. I don't know.
Actually, I think the last thing... Yeah, that was. I forgot.
That's okay.
They're all running together.
It's true. Anyway, before we get too far ahead, I want to make sure we remember this time that we address the things that we like to say, such as the opening theme song is done by songstowearpants2.com.
Awesome site.
Make sure to go there if you want your own theme music or just random crazy music that you want. He does a lot of stuff on YouTube as well, so look him up.
Yes.
Also check out newgrounds.com. I used a lot of their audio portal audio during the beginning of our run. By the way, as a little bonus recap of some of the things we've previously talked about. Now I'm going to do a little singing, so if you have any glass in the room, get it out of the way at rooms, because it might shatter or break, because I'm not a good singer.
That's not entirely true. You should give yourself more credit than you do.
Because we talked about Freakazoid, Batman, Lego, Mega Man, Superman, Spider-Man 2. That's kind of it. I didn't have the whole song going, but...
It's close enough.
Close enough. And if you don't know what that one is either, again, shame on you. They're both from the same show.
I'll remind you later. Because I do actually remember about half that song still from memorizing it probably almost 20 years ago.
And we're going to definitely get to that, because that's an important milestone for a lot of people who watch that show. Anyway, those are the two main things I wanted to plug, but definitely wanted to tell you that if you want to find us, go to afelson1.wordpress.com. That is afelson1.wordpress.com. Also look for us on iTunes under Andrew's Brain or the Freakacast. I don't know why some of the older episodes are disappearing, but on the blog that I previously just mentioned, there is still the archive for it, so you can download them for free at your leisure.
Yes. You gotta listen to the Batman episodes.
We covered a lot of ground with those.
And the Freakazoid.
And the Freakazoid one, our very first one, where I do an awesome moron impersonation.
Yes, you do.
And if you don't know that, it's not, I'm sounding dumb, but I do in a way.
It's the character you're doing the impersonation of, so
it does. And of course, we have other things we want to talk about, such as the Facebook page we have,
yes,
which is
Freak Out Entertainment.
Freak Entertainment. Make sure you click on the one that has Freakazoid as the icon. Anyway, I'm sure you have other stuff you actually want to, websites you want to plug, like the Brotherhood of the Bat and Batman on film, things of that nature.
Yeah, you definitely always want to plug Batman on film. Keep track of all your Dark Knight Rises news. Please, please, please stay away from any other site. They're going to show spoilers because that's what they're trying to do, because that's they get hits and all this other crap. Go to batmanonfilm.com. They'll give you news without spoiling the movie for you. But they don't just do Batman films. They'll do any kind of DC Comics related films for that matter. For instance, the new Man of Steel movie, which we finally got a picture of Henry Cavill as Superman, and it looks awesome.
He looks like a Superman who's going to take no prisoners.
Yes, which I'm very excited for. The picture, when I first saw it, I was like, wow, he looks like he could lift a tank.
He looks like someone who I wouldn't want to mess with.
Yeah.
Unlike the other Superman who was like, pansy.
I know, it's like...
I mean, to its defense, it looked okay. I mean, the movie looked great, as we've said before other movies.
Yeah, but even still, I've always felt that Superman should be big and muscular, and he should look impressive and imposing, not just be imposing and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the main difference we would feel for Batman and not Batman, Superman and Spider-Man would be like, Spider-Man you would expect to be lean and mean.
Yeah.
Superman, you'd expect him to be a bit bulkier.
Right.
Because, if you're going to be lifting, I don't know, buildings or parts of them, I've seen him doing various things. Right,
it's true.
You'd want him to have some muscle on him.
Yeah. I mean, granted, I think in years past with different movies, it was the kind of saying of, well, he doesn't need muscle to lift things, it's just his powers. It's like, he still needs muscle mass. Yes, it's a factor. He can lift, 100 times more than that of a human, but he still needs the muscle mass to back that up.
Granted, we're not asking for Arnold Schwarzenegger here, especially not him because, he'd be cheating on his wife. But, we already got that in the last movie anyway, right?
You totally lost me there.
Don't worry, other people I got.
Okay.
Anyway.
I'm just trying to fathom the image of an older Arnold Schwarzenegger playing Superman. That just sounds funny to me.
Lois, I'll save you. Come to me.
Who would play Zod? Christopher Walken. Neil, before Zod.
Before Zod if you want to, but really you should. Neil, before me. Zod. And I got a fever for more kneeling before me. And cowbell.
Who's cowbell?
That'd be an awesome movie. I would pay top dollar to see that.
Just to laugh at it. That'd be great.
Hollywood, get on that. Arnie, you need some money for after this alimony. Get on that.
Actually, he'll probably just crank out another Terminator movie and be fine with that.
Anyway, let's just dive right into what we're talking about today, shall we?
Yeah, we completely got off topic there.
Which is always fun. We're talking about some 90s cartoons.
Yes.
Specifically, the Warner Brothers ones that we all kind of grew up with, because we were kind of both 90s kids.
Yes, and the ones that we learned probably more out of those cartoons than actual school.
Maybe. For certain subjects, anyway.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, when we get to Animaniacs, that's definitely one where I was like, wow, as an adult, this holds up so much better.
And there's a reason why.
There's a reason why, but we got to start.
But
we got to start in the beginning, which is always a handy place to start.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to talk about the fun that really kicked things off, got the ball rolling, which is Steven Spielberg presents Tiny Toon Adventures.
Yay!
Which was made in 1990 to 1992. That was its production years.
Okay.
Ran until 1995, so it had reruns.
Good 3 years.
Good 3 years. Had a total of 98 episodes.
That's pretty good.
Approximately 3 seasons long. Had 2 longer specials. One ended up being a direct-to-video home movie, which was How I Spent My Summer Vacation.
I think I remember that, vaguely.
That was pretty good. And it was created by a man named Tom, hopefully I'm going to pronounce his last name correctly, Ruegger? R-U-E-G-G-E-R? Ruegger. And as far as its extended run, because it has had repeated viewings, like on various networks, because it ran on Nickelodeon for a while, ran on one of their Nicktoon sites, ran on Cartoon Networks, I think Boomerang for a while. Ended up continually being on TV till about 2005.
That was pretty good.
So it had a pretty long run. And, of course, I think the 2 seasons of it are on DVD right now.
Yes.
I own one of them, which Matt got me for Christmas.
Yay!
And it is something that is called, which is part of something which is called the Animation Renaissance of the 90s, which
Yes.
Animaniacs is part of, as well as Pinky and the Brain and several other...
I was going to say, you could look at a lot of cartoons. For instance, we previously talked about how Batman the Animated Series was inspired by the Superman, the Max Fleischer cartoons. So I think that kind of, I don't know if that spawned it necessarily, but certainly that was part of that.
One of the things, and it's not...
That's one thing you can clearly see.
What's nice, and this doesn't just cover the Warner Brothers cartoons,
Right.
but the renaissance overall that they referred to for this is the fact that, like, after the 1970s,
Right.
animation as a whole just kind of slumped, where not a lot of new content was created.
Not a lot of
So,
good quality content.
Not a lot of good quality. I mean, those were in those between years where certain studios would just crank out the lowest budget they could just to put something out there. And again, not to harp too much on Hanna-Barbera, because they did make some decent things, but
hence every copy of Scooby-Doo.
you know, hence why a lot of repeated backgrounds, a lot of repeated score, a lot of
Repeated episodes.
a lot of the same voice actor doing several characters
Right.
over the span of the whole thing. Again, not to harp on Hanna-Barbera too much, but that's what they could do with the money they had.
Right.
And they made it work for the most part. When we got to the 90s and the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of companies and corporations, Warner Brothers, Disney, and a lot of others decided, you know what, it's time to get things going again and create new content, get things back in gear.
Yep.
And one of the things that kicked it off was Tiny Toons, which was sort of okay, we have the Looney Tunes. Let's show a new type of generation of Looney Tunes. Let's have
Right.
like a sort of, not reincarnation, because we want the original cast there, but what's happened if they have some people who are trained to be cartoons of the future?
Yeah.
The kid versions of these kind of cartoons.
Yeah.
Let's try that.
And considering that you have kids watching these cartoons, it would make sense. You could kind of get the kids to watch the Tiny Toons as the kid versions of these classic Looney Tunes that they already know.
Mm-hmm. Being taught by those classic
Being taught by
tunes.
cartoons, right.
You know, so you have main characters like Buster and Babs Bunny being taught by Bugs Bunny
Yeah.
on how to be funny and outwit villains.
There's some good episodes with that.
There are. A lot of
good
good memories
bits.
of that show. And I remember watching the show quite a bit as
Yes.
a kid. And I'm going to list a couple characters. I didn't get voice actors this time around just because there was a lot of characters to name and we'd be here all night. And I didn't list all the characters either because it had a pretty big cast for what it was.
Yeah, it did actually.
We have the duo main characters, Buster Bunny, Babs Bunny, no
Okay.
relation.
Oddly enough.
It helps make it work for the show, you know?
It does.
That way it's not creepy if they go on a date,
That's true.
which they did do, I think, 1 or 2 episodes.
They did? I
Yeah.
don't remember that.
I remember I think Buster took Babs to the prom once.
Oh, okay.
And it's a funny scene where he has the brooch,
Okay.
and he's like, and Babs is like, let me do it. I hate the sight of blood.
That's pretty funny.
You have Plucky Duck.
Oh, I love Plucky.
You have Hampton J. Pig.
He's pretty good.
And obviously Plucky and Hampton are basically the parallels for Daffy Duck and Porky Pig.
Right?
You have some original characters, but basically these are all kind of spin-offs of characters like Yosemite Sam, where you have
Okay.
Montana Max.
Well, he was a spinoff of Yosemite Sam.
Well, I mean, I don't think he's from Texas, but he had that southern kind of brash brawl to him.
Okay.
And he was also a human villain.
Yeah.
But one that was kind of unique for this show was Elmira, who I remember disliking, just like, man, I wish they would bash her. And thankfully they can drop anvils on these characters at this point, which they did. regularly.
Elmira was one of those characters like, can you just please leave us alone? Because she always had that bitch, she's like, I'm going to love you and hug you into itty bitty pieces. And she literally did. They would like strangle as she was hugging them.
It's like, oh, this is PETA's worst nightmare right here.
Yes, it is. It's basically when PETA goes bad.
And thankfully, this is a show where you can drop an anvil on someone you don't like.
Yes.
Kids, don't do this at home. Because I don't know where you find an anvil these days.
I don't know.
We'll have to look that up. And then you have Go-Go Dodo, one of my favorites.
I think because I didn't understand the character, I never really cared for it much.
He's actually, I think, the only one that's actually a direct descent from a previous character, because they had
Okay.
a classic Porky Pig cartoon where he actually goes to Wacky Land, which is where this character lives in this series as well,
Okay.
and hunts down the last of the dodos, which ends up not being true. And then you have Furball, the cat,
Yeah, which is kind of like,
kind of like Sylvester,
yeah,
although not nearly as chatty.
true.
You had Fifi Le Fume, who was supposed to be
Pepe Le Pew.
Pepe Le Pew.
No, not Pew. Le Pew. Pepe Le Pew is my name.
What is all this pew that people keep saying when I'm around? And Dizzy Devil
Yeah, he
was also fun. So obviously,
a clear derivation of Tasmanian Devil.
Yep. And lots of others that I could probably... Okay, of the ones that I named, which one can you think of that wasn't on this list that I maybe left out? Because there are so many characters.
Honestly, I did not watch that show as much as I did Animaniacs and some of the others. So I really only recall those characters most. And quite honestly, I remember Buster, Babs, Plucky, and Hampton more than any of the others.
Well, of those are the 4 that were featured most prominently.
Right. Which is probably why I remember them the most.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, for their foil, they would have Montana Max and Elmira featured quite a bit as well.
Right.
And for the most part, this show is based on slapstick, explosions, which is always fun. Although they did branch out and do other things that are a bit more serious. Like they actually had one to talk about that dealt with the issue of crime.
Right.
They actually had an anti-smoking cartoon.
Didn't they also, I believe if I recall, at least on YouTube, I saw an anti-alcohol episode.
They did, which was actually quite controversial at the time. Because it featured underage characters
Yes.
drinking.
Yes.
And granted, it was aimed at the fact that, hey, if you do this, this is what you might be.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the cartoons that was briefly banned. Where there's like, okay, we've aired this, but I don't think it's quite appropriate for the age group we're targeting. Because,
yeah.
I mean, the anti-smoking, because chances are kids will be introduced to cigarettes before they are introduced to alcohol.
Right.
Like a lot of kids start smoking like when they're in middle school or even late elementary school. Some kids will get introduced to cigarettes. So the idea of having an anti-smoking cartoon is a bit more easier to deal with. Plus, the way it was handled was dealt a lot
Easier.
I
was going to say, you could probably do an episode with anti-smoking without having the characters themselves of an underage age.
Well, I mean, they had 2 villains doing it.
Yeah.
So it's a little easier. Plus, they got him to quit at the end.
Right. This just shows you, this is just for me. The 2 episodes I primarily remember.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was the one where Plucky was Bat Duck.
Yes.
That was my all-time favorite. I could have watched that 5 days a week, 24/7, and been happy.
I'm not surprised.
But there was also the one where they did a parody of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where it was like
they were samurai slugs.
Samurai slugs. And that was awesome. And I so wanted the costume of that because I thought it was awesome. Because that was Plucky was kind of me. I saw a lot of. At least in that episode, I saw a lot of, what I was into and that sort of thing. I think it was the right age for me because I hadn't really been introduced to Batman just yet. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was all about Ninja Turtles. So the Samurai Slugs was the great enough parallel, and Plucky was me in that episode. He was all about the Samurai Slugs and watching the show and getting the costume and everything. So
what I liked about the Batman parody one, what I found hilarious was the fact that
they put a target on Hampton.
Yeah, they put a target. Hampton's supposed to be Robin, and he put a big bullseye on him. That's great.
Well, it's not surprising. I mean, it's already a parody. You might as well go the full way with it.
Mm-hmm. As long as we're talking about episodes we clearly remember the most.
Yes.
Here's one that, if we ever do one that's based on music,
okay.
Like if we talk about our favorite bands, this will be definitely one I'll talk about a lot more elaborately.
Yes.
They had an episode called Tiny Toons Television, which is basically their version of MTV, where they basically devoted an entire episode to music videos.
Right, okay.
2 of those videos they featured, exactly, was Particle Man and Istanbul.
Not Constantinople.
Not Constantinople. Because Istanbul?
Not Constantinople.
Why did Constantinople get the works? That's nobody's business but the Turks. And for years, I saw that episode periodically, and I always liked those 2 songs.
Right.
Now, granted, I think the other songs that they had in that particular episode was Respect, which I liked as well because my dad listened to the oldies a lot.
Right. And
the song Money.
Okay.
Which is also, I think, an oldie.
Yeah.
Those 2 songs, the ones we were just talking about, those captured my imagination.
Right.
One, because, they had the animation to go with it. Like, Particle Man featured Plucky as a pro wrestler.
Yeah.
Which already I was like, this is awesome. It was all one of my things I was a fan of. But also it was funny.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, plus they're catchy.
Plus, they're very catchy. And for years, like I would like since I'm a kid, this came out in 1990, 92. So I was what? I was born in 83.
You were 9.
I was 9. So sometimes if I didn't catch the name of the band,
Right.
it was gone. So I remember the names of the songs. And so for years, it wasn't until I got to middle school, because I would always ask people, and that was also the days before internet.
Right.
For those of you younger and who are shuddering now, it was bad. We had to ride dinosaurs. We had to push our cars with our feet. It was awful.
I always wanted to push my car with my feet. I always wanted a car like that. And then I found out that my grandfather's brother, his wife, made their kids a Flintstones car. I'm like, oh, I wish you were my mom sometimes. I would have loved that.
So pre-internet, if your parents didn't know, if your friends who you hung out with didn't know, if your teachers didn't know, you were out of luck.
Yeah.
So,
that's why a lot of times when some people are like, oh, have you heard the song? I'm like, I don't know, maybe. I didn't catch the name.
So it wasn't until a few years later when I got to middle school where I met somebody who was also kind of into the music I liked. I was like, have you ever heard of this? Like, I could never find it. He's like, oh yeah, it's They Might Be Giants who did those songs. I'm like, really? That's pretty cool. And then he was such an awesome friend that year, after I revealed that I liked that music, he got me the album Flood for my birthday.
Okay, cool.
And that was also at a time when CDs were relatively new.
Yeah.
And I think I had maybe 3 or 4 CDs at the time. And that was quickly added to my collection, and I've listened to it repeatedly since then.
CDs, for those of you of the younger audience, pre-internet, that was an actual, it's called compact disc. It was a circular device. You had to insert it into a player, and it would play the music.
Yes. Thankfully, those are still around, so we're not that archaic. It's not
Yeah,
like
I know.
It's not like I got that cassette tape or an 8-track, which was before me, so I don't even...
Or a vinyl record, which have they actually been making a comeback
Which
lately?
I actually own vinyl records of They Might Be Giants, so there you go. Some new ones, too, believe it or not. Anyway.
No, that's not surprising. It's got kind of a retro comeback, so...
So, Tiny Toons introduced me to what would become one of my favorite bands of all time. For those of you who don't know who They Might Be Giants are, we'll elaborate later on when we do a music one, but for a quick guess, they're the guys who did the Malcolm in the Middle theme song.
Yeah.
As well as, obviously, the 2 songs I mentioned, Particle Man and Istanbul. And
They
you might
have a
also...
song about the sun.
Yes.
I've been hearing a lot lately, and I feel like I need to be a science teacher just so I can use that song.
And if... Also going back, they did the theme for Dr. Evil in, I think, the second Austin Powers movie.
Yes. That they did.
Also, they did the theme music for The Daily Show.
So that they're good at writing theme songs.
They're good at writing a lot of songs, but I'm kind of ranting now. So that's kind of one of the reasons why, no matter what people may say about Tiny Toons, because when you compare Tiny Toons to some of the later shows, they are different.
Yeah.
Tiny Toons was clearly aimed at a younger audience.
Right.
Now, granted, the nice thing about Tiny Toons is, like some of these others, it holds up better a little bit,
Right.
because there is some content that an older audience can get, but unfortunately, not nearly as much. So going back and watching it...
because it was aimed at a younger audience. And...
True. So going back and watching it, it is a little punny at times.
Right.
Where you're like, I wish they would shut up sometimes. But overall, it's still a decent watch. So it's one of those shows where if you're in the mood for, like, I'm going to revisit my childhood and just unwind a bit, it's still good.
Well, I guess the only question I would have for you, you say it's a little funny at times, and sometimes it's like, oh, this is a little bit too kiddie for me. Do you feel like, say, for instance, parents would be able to sit down and watch the show with their kids and still enjoy it?
I think...
More so than just watching it by themselves?
Yes.
Okay.
For the most part, this show is good at getting their message across to the younger audience, where there isn't a whole lot of things that are going to fly over their head. Now, obviously, with things like names of bands, which they've never heard of, that's going to go off and and hopefully the parents are paying attention.
Right.
Unlike my parents who were like, I don't know. No diss to them, because, it's all good.
My parents didn't pay attention to a lot of stuff I watched.
I think what's nice is the fact that when you go back and look at some of the ones where they have parody episodes of things that they're spoofing, because they did spoof things that were current in the 90s, because it does make it a little dated.
Like Batman and the Ninja Turtles.
Like Batman and the Ninja Turtles. You can't appreciate it on that level. It's like, I know what they're doing.
Yeah. Which is kind of neat. It takes you back and you're like, oh, and you understand the reference better now, too.
Yes.
Which is kind of nice.
And the nice thing about it is, music by Richard Stone, who composed a lot of the music for the Warner Brothers things,
Yes.
which we'll get to in a second, because he's responsible for a very memorable song. But he did all the theme songs, which is also very stuck in our head. But the nice thing about this is the fact that these cartoons really up the ante in terms of quality animation.
Yeah,
Where you looked at it and be like, you know, that's a good piece of work right there.
it is.
And the voice acting is really well done. All these sorts of things. This is quality work. So even on that level, it's like, you know, I appreciate things of quality.
Yeah.
Where, hey, someone actually put forth the effort, I'll appreciate it. Might not always
Very
be
true.
for me, but I'll appreciate
But
it.
at least you can appreciate the quality of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's always good.
That's kind of all I have to really
that's all
say
you-
on Tiny Toons, unless something pops up.
No Tiny Toons video games?
There were actually a
Okay.
couple. I don't own any, but there were pretty much ones on almost every console.
Okay.
Well, the older ones anyway. I don't think there's any new games that have come out, so I don't think there's going to be on Xbox or...
Right.
There might be one on PlayStation.
Okay.
I think that's as far as it went, since this is, you know, late 90s by the
Yeah,
time
that's
this
true.
had its run. But I've played a handful of them. I didn't have the Sega, so the really good one I think was on Sega.
Well, of the ones you played, what did you think?
They were good. The one I remember most was on the NES,
Okay.
and you got to play as Buster, Plucky, Furball, and Dizzy.
It's pretty cool.
And the objective, I think, Montana had kidnapped Babs, and you're supposed to try to navigate through Acme Acres.
So they kind of took a Mario route and said, okay, as far as the setup of the game.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up Mario, because pretty much after Mario Brothers 3,
Right.
a lot of games tried to follow that model of that type of platforming, which is that game kind of was.
And did that work for it?
I mean, it did, but it's also one of those things that this is clearly something that's trying to be Mario. Didn't hurt it because at least it had the lighthearted feel of a Tiny Toons game.
I guess for me, I ended up, certainly at that time, I found myself feeling safer with that type of game because I knew what to expect.
Well, the thing is, it's one of those things where there's no dishonor in trying to replicate or be like Mario 3, considering that's a game that most people consider to be the best on the system. So trying to get to that level is not a bad thing.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense then.
They've also appeared in comic books as well.
Yeah.
during their popular run. And I think they had fruit snacks at one point, a lot of merchandise going their way.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Warner
Fruit
Brothers.
snacks, they got stuck in your teeth, which is why I hate those things.
You know, this is produced by Warner Brothers. They'll make a plushie of anything. Well, almost anything.
No, they'll probably make a plushie of anything. Even something that's not supposed to be plushy.
Yeah.
Here's a plushy rock. It's a rock. It's not supposed to be plushy. It's plushy anyway.
Here's the Angry Birds. You know, it's the things that destroy buildings. They're plush now. All right.
I would not be surprised if they started making that, or if they
Those-
don't
that
already.
exists.
I was gonna say,
That exists.
yeah.
I mean, I've seen plush sushi things.
Huh?
Yeah.
It's sushi. It's food. Why are we making plush food? That's just wrong.
I mean, they're bigger, but still, it's the fact that they're in the shape of sushi.
But you can't eat it.
No, it's just a tease.
I know. It's stupid.
But you know what isn't stupid? Animaniacs.
Yeah, actually, that's very true. I can't disagree with you there. It's probably one of the more what's the word I'm looking for? Intellectual shows that's ever been made, actually, because it makes you think.
And the thing is, the intellectual part of it is disguised very cleverly.
Yes, it's disguised by random wackiness, but there's a reason for this.
Is there?
There is.
Is there a method to the madness?
There is. The show is actually targeted towards adult audience members.
Aha.
This was not a show designed for kids.
It just ran for kids.
It just happened to be a cartoon, and it was at that time where it's so hard for us to look back and think about a cartoon made for not made for adults, because we have Adult Swim where they can have Family Guy that's clearly for adults, but this is a time where that was not the norm.
Or in terms of, because they've had adult cartoons, but they
Right.
usually involved very, very adult things.
Yes, or something like Beavis and Butthead, which was
Like Beavis and Butthead, or
clearly adult.
if you're going way back, there was, I think the first X-rated cartoon ever was called Fritz the Cat.
Wow.
And that was
I
made
vaguely
in-
remember the name. But,
I think that was made in either the 60s or 70s.
okay.
So the idea of an adult-oriented cartoon has been done, but not quite like this,
Right.
where they actually took the idea of adult content, but toned it down so that a kid could watch it.
And that's what I didn't necessarily make it like adult content. They just were saying, hey, let's make it a show that's funny for adults that they can watch with their kids. Instead of the other way around.
Right.
Instead of making a show for kids that they can watch with their parents, let's make a show for adults that they can watch with their kids. And, well, the rest, as they say, is history. The Animaniacs premiered on September 13th of 93, so what was that, a year after Tiny Toons. So
Yeah, it's okay, because basically after the Tiny Toons run, they're like, this is good, this will last us for a while in reruns and merchandise, but let's focus on something bigger and better.
Right.
And so they went in favor of Animaniacs.
And not so much bigger and better, but different at the same time. The interesting thing is that while Tiny Toons went with the idea, okay, of saying, well, we've got Looney Tunes that's working really well. Let's do a younger, new generation sort of feel for that. With Animaniacs, they said, well, let's kind of throw in together, we're kind of using the slapstick of Looney Tunes, but let's throw in a little bit of that sarcasticness of the Marx Brothers. And they kind of also threw in some mythological characters and that sort of thing. And going back, this was Steven Spielberg as the executive producer once again, so already we've got Steven Spielberg you're responsible for Freakazoid, Tiny Toons, and Animaniacs. The guy knows what he's doing when it comes to strange, awesome cartoons.
This man is pretty much responsible for our childhood.
Yes.
Because you've got these shows, you got E.T.
Great Indiana Jones.
Jaws.
Yeah. Well, I didn't see that because that wasn't my thing at the time, but even still.
Although, really, that's not something you should show a young kid.
No, it's not.
Especially if, you live in Florida near the ocean.
Wow, sometimes I wonder about your parents.
I was young when I saw that movie.
Wow.
That was not a movie where...
That's not a movie you should have been watching.
Probably not, but I think at the time I was like, yeah, he'll get over it. I did, thankfully. I still love the ocean.
Yeah, that's good. Anyway... The show eventually, the last episode was aired on November 14th, 1998, so 5 years, good run, 99 episodes. It's a shame they didn't get one more to get a full 100.
Tis a shame. Although, didn't they have a movie or something?
They did. I'll get to that in a little bit.
We could kind of sort of count that as an episode, so technically, 100 original Animaniacs things.
There we go. Technically 100. We'll go with that. Anyway.
All right. High five.
Yay. High five. Who are the Animaniacs? You might be wondering. Well, you have the Wacko brothers, the Warner brothers, Wacko and Yakko, and their sister Dot.
Don't call her Dottie, or she'll kill you.
Yes. Literally, she'll kill you. She'll come out of the TV and strangle you.
I remember there was an episode where they put the characters in different situations.
Okay.
And so they ended up putting Dot as a standalone in the sloppy squirrel role. And so they had the theme song of, it's Aunt Dottie, don't call me Dottie. It's Aunt Dottie. I warned you, and she threw a bomb at them.
I don't remember that. That's the thing. I don't remember a lot of episodes. I just remember a lot of bits.
And then they had in that same episode, they had a brief bit where I'm skipping around because naming characters, but they had a bit where they combined Rita the cat and Pinky the mouse, and Rita just ate Pinky. And she's like, I like this episode.
Yes. Rita and Rund. Anyway, literally in charge of the Warner Brothers and their sister, you have Dr. Scratch and Sniff, which that's just a funny name right there. He was the German psychiatrist, or as they like to call it, a P-psychiatrist. Why? Because there's a P in front of the word. Why is there a P in front of the word if we don't pronounce the P? That's a good question.
English language is a funny thing.
I know. We should change it. It should be pronounced P-psychiatrist.
Or just drop the P altogether.
Exactly. I like P-psychiatrist better. That's funnier.
Now that we're talking about it, I know this has no relevance at all, but how does S-E-A-N spell Sean? Someone enlighten me.
Yes, please do, because it spells scene, last time I checked. If B-E-A-N spells bean, S-E-A-N should spell scene. Seems pretty common sense to me.
And, I'll go with Eddie Izzard on the fact that you should pronounce herb with an H, because there's an H in it.
Yes. I would agree with you.
I like Dr. Scratch. If he kind of... I used to be able to do his voice a little bit. Now I have to kind of pull back and kind of sound like this a little bit. Not quite.
You get too much of an Italian accent in there.
A little too much. I used to do it better. I had
okay.
more practice.
Well, you practice on it and bring it about for the next time. Anyway, and as the assistant to Dr. Scratch and Sniff,
Hello,
nurse! Thank you, Animaniacs, for making us remember that.
Who was the CEO? Wasn't he also technically in charge?
The CEO?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
The little short guy who was head of Warner Brothers.
Oh, him. I don't remember his name.
Well, there you go. He was also a recurring character, the one who locked
Yes.
them in the tower.
Yes, I forgot about him.
You also had the guard.
Yeah. I don't...
Wow, it sounded like this, guys. Get back in the tower.
You remember these guys better than I do.
This was also a show I watched quite a bit.
Well, it was funny. I watched this a lot, too. It's just, like I was saying, I don't remember the episodes a lot, but I remember the bits. Like, and I'm going to get
Well, I
to-
don't remember all episodes either.
Yeah.
Because the mix-up one was a series of bits.
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing about the show. It wasn't designed as a specific storyline. It was just literally, it was kind of like, let's make a cartoon version of Saturday Night Live. It was designed as sketch comedy.
With also throwing in classic comedians. Like you
Yes.
mentioned the Marx Brothers. There's also, I'm sure, references to Laurel and Hardy. And to the Three Stooges.
Well, not only that was a reference, it was in the song for Read It and Runt.
That's right.
I mean, it would actually say, like, Laurel and Hardy.
And, something and something.
Something and something. But they compare all these classic duos
And they
in their
also
song.
they also worked in a variation of the Who's on First skit with Slappy Squirrel and Skippy.
I vaguely remember that. The problem
Where-
was, I didn't know about the Who's on First skit at the time.
Which was Abbott and Costello, so another comedy duo. And that was the episode, I don't remember.
Oh, that's right, when she went to see The Who.
Yes.
I forgot.
Who's the band on stage? Who? The name of the band? Who? What's the name of the band? Who? The band on stage? Who? Who was on the stage? Yes. Yes is not. Yes is playing. No. Yes is not at this concert. Who was on stage?
Oh, I used that one time at the Toys R Us. The guy behind me was buying a copy of a Who in concert. I'm like, or no, Doctor Who.
Oh, okay.
He's like, oh, I'm looking for Doctor Who. Yes. Who? Yes.
So you see what we're getting at here. A lot of throwbacks to classic comedy that
Yeah.
the kids can kind of get,
Yeah.
especially if they're following along. But the adults will be like, "This is clever.
Yes.
This is clever stuff."
And that's the one really great thing. Not only do you have references to classic things like that, but you also have the Good Feathers. My favorite guy, a couple of my favorite guys, just because I didn't know what they were referencing. I didn't realize they were referencing the Goodfellas. You know, your classic Italian Chicago mobsters at the time. I just thought they were funny, especially because it was Bobby, Pesto, and Squint.
And
I don't remember the other guy's name.
I know because it was killing you.
It was.
And you had the
But I remember Squint had this giant smile, and he would just... And I remember that specifically because it was either in a Happy Meal box or a cereal box where you could punch out a Squint mask.
And there was it the Pigeon Father?
Probably. I don't remember...
Because he was supposed to be the Godfather.
Yeah, I don't remember that as much because a lot of times in the episodes it was just the three of them.
But he would show up periodically, and the bit with him was he would talk, and I forget the was Bobby, I think.
Mm-hmm. Bobby was the leader guy.
Okay, Bobby would have to translate.
Yeah.
He said, the God Pigeon says this.
Anyway, then of course you have our ultimate favorite duo, Pinky and Brain.
Which got their own series.
They did. Because they were awesome, and they were like, hey, these guys are awesome on their own. Let's make it their own show. We'll talk about that later. Then you also have Buttons and Mindy, which their kind of thing was Buttons never talked, but Mindy would always get in trouble, and Buttons would have to save her.
Kind of a parody of Lassie.
Yeah, but without a well. Well,
No.
maybe if there was a well, I don't remember it.
It's usually like, oh, look, the little girl has been tied to a balloon.
Yeah, I was
Going
going to say, I
across
remember the balloon.
I must go save her.
Yes. But then even in those bits where they would do Buttons running around trying to chase, to save Mindy, you'd see the other characters walking around. Like, you might see Yakko and Wacko doing something over here. Or, Slappy and, some of the other guys doing something over here. So they kind of worked it in pretty
What's
good.
nice is they had a lot of like not only was there like the main focus of the show, but you also had background humor as well and things going on all the time. So you really had to keep an eye out and pay attention in this one, and plus some of the dialogue.
It's not good for somebody like me.
Plus some of the dialogue they threw at you. There's a once again we plug another person, the Nostalgia Critic.
Yes.
Where he lists the top 11 dirtiest things that Animaniacs got away with.
Now I'm going to. You're kind of jumping me ahead a little bit. That's okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. This is like I said. The show was aimed at an adult audience, and in the episode it was called Turkey Jerky. A pilgrim says, "Give me the bird." Yakko responds saying, "We'd love to, really, but the Fox censors won't allow it." I mean, that's the thing, is they poked fun at it. And the Nostalgia Critic points out a lot of things where you're like, holy crap, how did they get away with that?
And there's far worse.
There is far, far worse. And you're kind of like, I'm glad I missed that as a kid.
I think there was one where they had to be put in school.
Okay.
And the teacher was like, Yakko, enunciate. I've never even kissed a girl. Let's enunciate together. Good night, everybody.
Yes, and that was actually one of their classic bits. Is anytime the show got too risque, Yakko would just belt out, "Good night, everybody."
So many great moments in that show.
It really is, and it's because it was aimed at an adult audience. How they even thought that would work as well as it did.
And the beauty of it is,
I think they're half genius and half insane.
Well, it's like a lot of credit goes to the writers of this show.
Yes.
It was like, you know what? We know what we're doing.
Well, the interesting thing you bring that up, because the last main character I want to mention is Slappy Squirrel. Mm-hmm. And the woman that did the voice of Slappy was also the writer of the character, which I thought was rather interesting because you don't see that too often.
Right.
And so the fact that you have somebody who not only is doing the voice of the character, but she's writing the character, and that's a character we know and remember, at least as far as her personality and that sort of thing.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, that's probably why she was such a strong character, is you had the person doing the voice also staying in character, creating the dialogue.
Right, and they could improvise and it wouldn't be out of character. Mm-hmm. That was the only person that was really, that had their own thing.
Do you have the name of this writer?
I do, actually. Oh, she has a funny name. Sherry Stoner.
Well, with a name like that, you know it had to be good.
One of the other voice actors you already mentioned from Tiny Toons was Rob Paulson.
Okay.
And he not only did Yakko's voice, but he also did Pinky and Dr. Otto Scratch and Sniff. I forgot his first name.
Otto.
Nah, 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 nah.
It's back again, folks.
The one thing I thought was rather interesting is the guy that does the voice of Wacko, his name is Jess Harnell, and he wasn't from Tiny Toons. They pulled in so many voice actors from Tiny Toons, and they just kind of filled in gaps where they had it. Basically, he just went in, and for his audition, he did a John Lennon impression, and that's the voice we got for Wacko.
Nice.
So if you listen to Wacko's voice and you listen to John Lennon, you might be like, wow, they sound really similar.
Which I guess why Michael kind of talked with a bit of an accent.
Yeah.
As opposed to the other two.
Yeah. Which I always thought was rather odd, because, like, if they're brothers, why does he have a different accent?
He was the odd one out. I mean, they made him visually different than the two. Granted, granted all three were distinct in their appearance, but
right.
He had the most, like, different features, I suppose.
Right. Although, if you do recall the one episode where he does the belching of the Blue Danube song.
Yeah.
Which is classic. He did not do the belching for that bit. That was actually Maurice LaMarche, the guy who does the voice of Brain.
Which I think I remember this. I might be skipping ahead, but he based the voice of Brain on Orson Welles.
Yes, he did actually. And we'll get to that when we get to Pinky and the
Which
Brain.
I always thought was amusing.
There's more to it than that.
I know. I mean, I know some of this. I know. I was like, yeah, that was fun, especially when you have to go to when you do things in film classes and you learn about people like Orson Welles.
Right.
Certain things cross over, and you're like, that's interesting stuff right there.
It's like, I remember that.
It's like, this is vague. This is really familiar.
But it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. They pulled so much from other classic stuff that adults had already been familiar with and knew, so they could enjoy it. And at the same time, reintroducing it to a new generation.
Right.
But not only did they reintroduce that to a new generation, they taught us stuff that schools didn't teach us through amazing songs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once again, this amazing guy, Richard Stone, as we've mentioned on other shows and that sort of thing, he is responsible for the two main songs we know and remember and love, Wacko's America, which is the 50 U.S. states and their capitals, and The Nations of the World.
Yep. United States,
Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, too, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, and Ecuador, Brazil. I could go on, but I won't.
It's further than I can get. Although I did try to learn the 50 states one, but that ended up being too hard.
Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Columbus is the capital of Ohio. There's Montgomery, Alabama, south of Helena, Montana, and Louisiana. I don't.
The thing is,
see, I remember bits and parts of it, but not all in a linear fashion.
yeah. So I mean, and the nice thing is they actually give you a reason to try to learn because
Yeah.
like it was fun, catchy, and really great. And the songs that like Matt isn't highlighting, where they had just certain episodes where they were all singing. The show featured a great soundtrack.
It did. In fact, I actually have a CD.
How about that?
I have. It's called Yakko's World, where they have the parody of, instead of the Erie Canal, it's the Panama Canal.
I remember that. Yeah. They also
Like,
did,
water enough to drench a sheep.
and they did Lake Titicaca.
Caca, yes, Lake Titicaca.
Right next to Bolivia and Peru. Lake Titicaca.
My mom did not like me listening to that song.
Oh, yeah, it's like, why do we sing its name? Because we like to say its name.
Titicaca! Well, I remember that because I think I was like
Well, they also did
11 or 12 at the time. She's like, I
Yeah.
don't like that song.
They also did a parody of the Macarena, where it's
I don't remember that.
where Dot was saying, "I'm Lady Macadamia."
This is before Lady Gaga. She might change her name to Lady Macadamia.
And they had other interesting things, like sometimes they just had random bits during the show just to break stuff up. Like they had Dot's Poetry Corner,
Oh, I love Doc's Poetry Corner. That was hilarious.
the Wheel of Morality.
Oh, Wheel of Morality, turn, turn, turn. Tell us a lesson that we should learn. Free trip to Tahiti! Woo!
Or it's like, moral number 3, wash, rinse, repeat. I think the wheel needs a tune-up or a whole overhaul.
Yeah. They did have some great bits on that. My personal favorite bit, though, good idea, bad idea.
Oh yeah, those are great.
My favorite one that I remember is, good idea, feeding the animals in the park. Bad idea, feeding the animals in the park to a bear. It's like, I don't know why, but for some reason, that one stuck with me.
Or it's
And
like,
I think the cleverness in that was, you could take something, the first one, feeding the animals in the park. That sounds good, and all you have to do is add a prepositional phrase right after that. Sorry if I'm using this terminology, I'm a teacher.
that's okay.
And all of a sudden it becomes this horrible, horrible thing.
It's like, good idea, doing your own yard work. Bad idea, doing your own dentistry.
Yes.
And the character they used for that was actually a character from Tiny Toons,
It was?
Mr. Skullhead.
Okay. For some reason, I didn't recognize that right away.
And he had like, I think, one bit in Animaniacs, and it was a parody of Edward Scissorhands.
I might have seen that.
Because he was Skullhead Bony Hands.
Now I remember it. I at least remember the name. I don't remember if I remember the show or not, but I know I remember that.
Wow.
But we did. Well, we already said the Hello Nurse thing, and they actually did that intentionally. They made that a catchphrase of the Warner Brothers to be kind of like Bugs Bunny's "What's Up, Doc?" like as an answer to that. And you know what? I think that caught on much more than "What's Up, Doc?" The only problem is when you see a cute girl, that's the first thing that pops in your head. It's like, "Hello, nurse."
And she's like, cut it out, I'm a carpenter. All right.
Hello, carpenter.
Doesn't have the same ring to it.
I know,
Can you
but
go
even
join the
still.
nursing thing? So this joke can work.
That would be funny.
She's like,
Though.
who are you? Go away. It's like, all right.
Of course, a couple of the other catchphrases that became very popular in the show that obviously spun off into its own show was from Pinky and the Brain. And Brain was Brain always had the line, Pinky, are you pondering what I'm pondering? And Pinky would always respond the most weirdest random stuff you ever heard of. Mm-hmm. Where it was like, I think so, Brain, but where are we going to find rubber pants our size? Or, I think so, Brain, but where are we going to find a tattoo parlor at this time of night? Or, I think so, Brain, but me and Pippi Longstocking, I mean, what would the children look like? And the interesting thing about that was they actually did an episode. And I remember
this episode.
I may be skipping ahead. I can't remember if it was on Animaniacs or Pinky and the Brain
Pinky
show.
and the Brain.
Where they actually, it was called Pinky POV, where the episode was like
through Pinky's eyes.
Through Pinky's eyes. And when Brain would say the line, are you pondering what I'm pondering, it would take you through Pinky's thought process, which was quite logical. And all of a sudden, he would get to that line and be like, it makes perfect sense now. It's like, I am totally not in the loop about this.
But what's funny is, like, also during that episode when Brain's talking, it's like, Pinky, big word, big word, big word, really big word.
Yeah.
Big word, take over the world, big word, pants. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
So that also helped us as to figure out why Pinky was so strange.
Well, Pinky wasn't so much strange, but he would go off into his own thought.
Yeah.
You know, it was an interesting pairing because Brain was definitely the leader. He was the one in charge of the plan. Pinky was the muscle.
You can call it that.
He was more muscle than Brain was. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, typically, if you recall, anytime Brain needed any heavy lifting done, heavy for mice anyway, he'd have Pinky do it. Pinky was there mostly just to help him get stuff built and that sort of thing. He didn't. I mean, he wasn't.
Or be the guinea pig.
Or be the guinea pig, right? As in most cases. But what I always liked about that pairing was, no matter what Brain put Pinky through, he was there with him every step of the way.
Even if he didn't get it.
Even if he didn't get it.
Although every now and then he'd throw Brain for a loop.
Yeah.
Like I remember one episode where they're time traveling.
Okay.
And Brain, it's the time machine is like human size, like a human made it.
Right.
And Brain basically cobbles together a paperclip and puts it in to make it work as a key.
Right.
And Brain's like, this will make it work. This will do this. And Pinky's like, do you think it'll also roast marshmallows? And Brain was about to smash him, and he goes, you know what? It might. And there was another episode where I brought up the pants thing. I forget the context of what, because they ended up having to do something to get the device to make it work.
Right.
But the scheme was, Pinky, this device will cause all people with loose change in their pockets to be stuck to the floor, thereby making us time to get to the White House to take over America and then the world. And Pinky's like, brilliant, Brain. Oh, wait, no. What if they take off their pants? And Brain's like, we'll just have to take over the world quickly.
It is. It's like, it's funny because, in the theme song they say, one's a genius, the other's insane. Pinky's really not insane.
He has his moments of insanity.
Yeah, he definitely has his moments of insanity, of just sheer absurdity, but he's never insane. I mean, especially when you see that point of view episode, you're like, wow. I'm glad you brought that up.
Arf.
Yes, and point. Point, actually. Not point, but point.
Point.
Those were actually... The two characters were actually inspired by two of the writers on the show. This one guy...
So there's an actual reason why they used Narf? Whatever that's
yes, there is. There's actually a reason. In fact, Narf is actually in the dictionary.
Really?
Yes.
Amazing. I know they made an acronym for it in one of the episodes where they had to raise the Titanic. Or it was like nautical something something.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
And then in one episode, it was like, can't you say something else? Maybe we'll name a fjord after you. Okay, fjord. Stop saying fjord!
I remember that one. Stop saying fjord! Okay, so Eddie Fitzgerald.
Eddie Fitzgerald.
Eddie Fitzgerald was it was actually, I apologize. It wasn't writers. It was producers on Tiny Toons. There's two producers on Tiny Toons, Eddie Fitzgerald and Tom Minton. Eddie Fitzgerald, I guess, was the inspiration for Pinky, and Tom was the inspiration for Brain.
Okay.
I don't really know much about it other than that. I don't know if it was, intelligence levels or personalities or what or size and look difference. Like if one was kind of short with a big head and the other one was really tall and kind of lanky.
Well, maybe it's kind of like I don't know, I'm just guessing, but maybe it was like they were just exaggerating a dynamic of, okay, this one dude, he's really high energy.
Yeah.
Really this other dude, not so much, but they work together as a team.
Yeah, it could be that too. I just know that it was inspired. But Eddie would just randomly like introduce himself by saying, Narf, point, just to mess with people. And so, yeah, they actually just took that down. And then you had the other ones, which is Zort. And then Traz, which was Zort backwards.
I remember Zort. Not Traz so much, but...
Yeah, I don't remember Traz as much, but definitely Narf, Zort, and Point.
You sound ridiculous.
They are ridiculous, but they're awesome. Anyway, going back to the Orson Welles reference, not only was Brain, the voice was supposed to sound like Orson Welles, the character's personality and that sort of thing, there was actually an episode called Whatever Happened to Baby Brain, where Brain crosses paths with Orson Welles.
I can do you one better, actually.
And they actually say, yeah, they both find themselves yelling in unison, things will be different when I take over the world.
I can do you one better.
Okay.
Unless you already have this down.
Probably.
There is a famous recording of Orson Welles
I have seen that.
pitching some product.
Yes.
And during the recording, he's berating the writers, like, this is ridiculous. This is beneath me.
Yes.
This is appalling kind of thing. Like,
I do actually remember that
You're awful. And the voice actor would actually verbatim do that entire skit to get himself in the mindset and get ready to do Brain.
Oh, wow.
And they actually included that whole bit, or at least the concept of it, in one of the episodes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I've seen that episode where Brain is in the recording.
Where Brain is in the recording, berating the people who's writing
and he's saying it word for word. But not only that, but they actually had some of the episodes built around Orson Welles films. Mm-hmm. For instance, they had Battle for the Planet, in which Brain, inspired by Welles' infamous War of the Worlds radio broadcast,
I remember that episode.
Stages an alien invasion on television.
I remember that one.
And they had an episode called The Third Mouse, which was a parody of The Third Man. And I'm sure there were others. That's all I could find.
I know in Tiny Toons they had Citizen Max.
Not surprising.
As a Citizen Kane.
We should probably actually watch all these old Orson Welles films so we know what's going on.
Well, I've seen a couple of them.
Okay, I haven't seen any of them.
I've seen Citizen Kane, at least.
Well, that's supposed to be one of the best films ever made, so...
Yeah. It's okay.
I'm just saying what I've heard. I've never seen the film. I can't judge it yet. But
in terms of actual filmmaking, yeah.
Okay. No, you are the film guru here, so that's okay.
It's certainly a lesson of perspective.
Oh yeah.
When you look at some of the shots he does.
Yeah.
And good storytelling. I mean, it's. Yeah. I mean, personally, me, I wouldn't say it's the best movie ever made. But it's certainly one of the better ones.
Well, that's what I'm saying. One of the best in terms of like the top 50 or something.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But like I said, that's just what I've heard. I've never actually seen the thing. The thing I found rather interesting was that they were actually, not so much that they made a Pinky and the Brain video game.
They made an Animaniacs video game.
Yeah, if they did, I don't know because I don't play video games.
I don't recall a Pinky and the Brain game.
However. Pinky and the Brain appear in the post-apocalyptic role-playing game Fallout 2.
Cool.
Portrayed as a sibling couple of mutant albino mole rats. One creature is utterly insane, muttering intentions of taking rulership. The other is a highly intelligent cult leader who has intricate plans to claim domination of the post-apocalyptic world. He also has a taste for cheesy poops. I thought that was pretty funny.
Speaking of cheese, do you remember the episode where they have to go get dragon nails and it's set in medieval times?
Probably. The only time when I remember, like out in a different time period, was the one where they had to capture Samson's hair and put it on Brain's head so he could become really strong to take over the world.
I think that's the only time, because they had the context for it, where they got to say, I'm going to say the way they said it, although I can't remember the name of the army. My army was defeated by the jawbone of an ass. They can actually say that on TV in cartoon because of the reference.
Well, not only that, but it was because they literally had the jawbone of a donkey. Mm-hmm. So,
anyway, the medieval time one, where they go on a quest to get Dragon Nail to complete a potion to complete a spell for Brain to take over the world.
Yeah.
Brain had a magic wand.
Okay.
And he would make this. He had this incantation where It was a reference to the 90s.
Okay.
It was like Charlie Sheen, Ben Vereen, making the size of a lima bean.
Wow, and the Charlie Sheen thing is pretty funny, at least.
I know,
Well,
it's funny now. But the reason why I bring up cheese is at the end of the episode, they have all the ingredients, and Brain has to do this incantation.
Okay.
He has to say it correctly. If he messes it up even the slightest bit, it could have horrible effects. Now, all throughout this episode, Pinky has been a minstrel,
Okay.
periodically singing, but he would get so far in the song and not know what to sing,
Okay.
where he couldn't think of another word, and Brain would always have to be, it's this!
Yeah.
It rhymes with this! And so, as Brain is doing his incantation, Pinky is singing. And it gets to a point where he can't think of a word. And Brain is at the point where he can go, take over the world, finish the song. Take over the world, finish the song. And he chooses poorly.
He chooses finish the song, not take over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So what does he do? Say the word cheese?
He said, like, I don't remember how it rhymes, but it's supposed to say, the ending verse is, the big cheese. To be the big cheese.
I do remember that.
And so,
actually.
big cheese! Big cheese! And he ends up becoming a giant piece of cheese for a
Yeah,
head.
I remember that.
And Pinky had a great one-liner, and that was like, Brain, do you need anything? Like a glass of water? Or a cracker? And Brain was like, if I wasn't a giant loaf of cheese, I would hurt you.
That's awesome.
There's a lot of great bits in that show. Like when people are like, well, you're strange looking. You know, because he'd have to be like in like a giant metal suit.
Oh, yeah.
Or like there was one time where...
tiny head.
Yeah, or like when he was trying to be a country singer and he was on stilts. And so he would always deadpan. It was like, instead of going along with the bit, he's like, actually, I'm a mouse on stilts. Give me that. Or it's like, actually, I'm a mouse in a giant metal suit.
I'm a mouse in a giant man suit. He's at work tomorrow.
Unfortunately, people might be thinking you're referencing Men in Black, except instead of a mouse, you're an alien.
Yeah, it's okay. They don't know any better.
That's all right.
But, unfortunately, it had to come to an end.
Unfortunately.
And it was one of those things where it wasn't because it was unsuccessful or because they messed around times like Freakazoid. It was just, what happened was they started, there was a changeover, I guess, in their management.
Oh, that's always fun.
Mm-hmm. And so they started pushing for more characters. So there was an episode called Pinky and the Brain and Larry, which they actually kind of redid the song a little bit, like as a joke. Mm-hmm. You may have seen this. I don't know if you have or not. I vaguely remember.
I vaguely remember. I remember they tried like a separate spin-off series where they included Elmira from Tiny Toons.
Yes. That was a direct result of the Pinky and the Brain and Larry to the pressure. And unfortunately, one of the key writers of the series was like, if you're going to do this, I'm out. Well, when you lose one of your best writers, the show starts going down. And unfortunately, that's what happened. The funny thing is the name of the title of the episode, the last one he wrote was called "You'll Never Eat Food Pellets in This Town Again," which I thought was pretty funny. So unfortunately, when Pinky, Elmira, and the Brain, which honestly sounds like a bad idea, it was a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of ruining with the formula that works.
Yeah. So what happened was they
made like 13 episodes, I think?
Yeah, 13 episodes, 6 of which were shown whole and 7 of which were chopped into segments and aired as part of the Cat and Birdie, Warner Rooney, Pinky Brainy, Big Cartoony show.
I don't remember that at all.
I don't even know the name. This was the first I've heard of that. Which shows you how much it had gone down.
Might also... What, do you have a year for when that came out? I mean, we both...
Well, it was 98.
We were both probably watching a lot more Batman at that point.
In 98, well, yeah, I was going to say... Well, in 98, in 1998, let's see, I was sophomore in high school, so I wasn't watching as many cartoons, because for one thing...
Yeah, that's also probably true.
At least for me, not that I didn't want to watch cartoons. Actually, I was busy watching Spider-Man. But they weren't showing them at times where I could watch them. A lot of times it would be Saturday morning at 8. I was busy sleeping. Or during the week at 8 o'clock in the morning, I was at school. Because our school started at 7:30. So it's like, it's not, they were released consistent, it just wasn't when I was available.
I had to be at my high school early because I had friends who were doing the morning show and radio.
Oh, I had to be there early because we started early. The nice thing is we got done early. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember exactly when we started, but I know we had to be there earlier than usual. So,
yeah.
Which made finding parking spaces easy.
I can't relate to that because I didn't drive, so.
Yeah.
I was one of those weirdos that still took the cheese wagon to school because, well, I had no reason not to. I didn't want a car, and I didn't want to drive, and I didn't want a job, and I still don't.
Well, for us, it was sort of like, well, we're severely overcrowded, and sometimes the bus is so crowded you have nowhere to sit, or I could just drive.
Yeah, I was to say, it was different for me because you had your own seat to yourself. In fact, all throughout high school, their bus was only half filled, and that was one person per seat. So
yeah, on our bus it was 3 to a seat, 4 if you can squeeze them in. If not, you're sitting on the floor because there's no seats. And these are full-size buses.
Yeah. So, but at any rate,
I had reasons.
Yeah, no, you did definitely. Well, we both have reasons for the choices we made. But as you kind of mentioned before, they did make a Animaniacs movie. It was called Wacko's Wish, and that was kind of like the last hurrah for everybody. That was the last thing we ever saw of Animaniacs. That was the last thing we ever saw of Pinky and the Brain. And there have been internet rumors of a Pinky and the Brain movie set to be in live action with my CG. I would be curious to see that.
I'd go.
Yeah. As long as it was still written by the same people and voiced by the same people, I'd be all for that. However, only time will tell.
I think Animaniacs, its full run is on DVD now.
It is? Well, I take that back. It's not its full run. Volume 1, actually, this is quite odd. Not all of the episodes are on DVD. I think the first 3 seasons are.
Okay.
So that's out of 5. But the first volume of Animaniacs not only sold very well, over half the product being sold in the first week made it one of the fastest-selling animation DVDs, probably ever, but certainly of Warner Brothers Animation.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of people really loved the show, and by the time they were released these on DVD, it had long gone off TV.
Right. So we really
so people really missed it,
and yet somehow neither one of us owned it.
Tis a shame.
It is. We need to get that when we can.
Well, you were busy buying Batman.
That's true. That is very true, because that was totally worth it.
And I only have 1 season of Tiny Toons, although, granted, I would probably buy Animaniacs first to finish it up.
Yeah.
Although the way I do things sometimes is, like with Batman, we're like, how many, you have all of it, right?
I have all of it.
How many seasons is it?
4 seasons.
4 seasons?
28 episodes per season.
Okay, so sometimes I went on a run of like, okay, I'm going to watch Batman, and I watched like the first 3 seasons back to back to back.
Yeah.
So I've yet to get to the 4th because like I'm done for now. And that's kind of how I do with certain things that like I'm really into for a little while. Like I have like the first 2 seasons of Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Right.
And I watched the heck out of it, and then I haven't touched it in years. I think the only exception to the rule...
You gotta pace yourself better.
I know, but it's sometimes like once you get into it, I gotta keep going. This is awesome. And I think the only exception to the rule is because it's broken up so crazily. There's no overall story to a lot of it. Is Robot Chicken.
Yeah.
Or I could probably pop in a DVD anytime and watch them.
Yeah.
Plus they have the Star Wars specials, which are fun.
Yeah. I was gonna say Superman the Animated Series is similar to that, where it didn't have a set storyline, and actually a lot of those episodes were so one-off of themselves anyway.
I think not so much in terms of storylines, but I guess like for like Aqua Teen, where a lot of episodes it was the same tone throughout.
Okay.
Whereas like with Batman, you could have a very different episode from one to the next.
Yes.
And same with Robot Chicken, where it's granted it's the same overall comedy style, but a lot very variations throughout.
Right.
A lot of things to poke fun at.
Yeah.
Poke fun of. The only thing I'm kind of itching to see again is Invader Zim, because I have the full run of that on DVD.
Right.
And I haven't watched that in a couple years, so I have to go find that and get it, because I have the box set, or it came in the house Zim was in.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I remember I loved the heck out of that show and was really sad that it went away.
Well, it's always a shame when you enjoy a show during its run and you get to see it on TV and that sort of thing, and it eventually goes away. And, I mean, they all eventually go away, and you hope that they don't. I mean, I certainly enjoyed, every week getting an episode of Smallville, but it eventually ended, and I can look forward to other things. And the nice thing is, at least now, is with all these different shows, they're putting them on DVDs, so
Well, at
you
least
can't have the show.
Yeah.
Watch it
But
whenever
at least the nice thing with Smallville is the fact that it had its full run, it had a full story arc, and it had a conclusion.
Right.
Some of these shows that you really love just get canceled,
Yeah.
and you don't get an end.
You don't, and unfortunately, the other thing too is
Especially in things like Animaniacs, you're like, I wish this would keep going, kind of thing.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you make that point, because there is an Animaniacs revival project on Facebook headed by Rob Paulson, the voice of Yakko, and Maurice LaMarche, the voice of Brain.
Nice. That's an Animaniacs revival
Project.
Well then.
Headed by the two main voice actors of the show.
And the nice thing is, like, Steven Spielberg himself has commented, like, I brought this up for Freakazoid, where if he has said if the right people were involved, he was going to be all for it.
Right.
And he was talking about Freakazoid, but the thing is, considering he had his hand on all these things we've been talking about,
Right.
and he really loved all these things,
Yes.
there'd be no question that if the right people were involved, he would be on board in a heartbeat. The only problem we would have is, sadly, Richard Stone has passed away.
Oh.
So that musical talent, unfortunately, would not be fully present.
Perhaps that one would not be present, but hopefully Steven could find another person just as good. It's an interesting comparison, but John Williams, well known for the Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Superman, all that stuff. But when the Clone Wars TV show came out, they didn't go with John Williams. They went with a guy named Kevin Kiner. Still does really good work for the show. It's got that same feel for the score that the show needs, just like the films do. Mm-hmm. But it's somebody different. He brings something different, but at the same time, it still fits. So hopefully, if they do bring back Animaniacs or Pinky and the Brain, they can find someone with the same treatment of the product to still do it justice, but maybe a little different, maybe put their own spin on it, but still have the right kind of tone and feel that the show needs. So that's pretty much.
Of course, it's us rambling of like, oh, we miss these shows. We would wish they would be back on TV. I don't even know what they show on those slots anymore.
Nothing.
I mean, I think there's like one or two current cartoons that if it's on, I'll watch it. Like Adventure Time is pretty funny.
I watched the Penguins of Madagascar. That's funny.
There's a regular show, which we both saw that one bit of like.
Oh, that's the one with the giant nose?
There was that, yeah. The guy with the big head.
Yeah.
But someone came up to these two characters and handed them a card that says, so-and-so thinks you're awesome. And I was like, that's awesome. That's great. And there's a show that's it's called Mad, but it's based from Mad Magazine.
Okay. I think you mentioned that before.
And the thing I want to bring up, because it may lead into something later on that we'll do, hint, hint, wink, wink, is they did basically it was a parody of TMZ, but it was TMNT.
Oh, yeah.
TMZ, where Shredder capturing video of the turtles. It's like, look at Michelangelo after too much pizza. And Shredder's like, that was a cheesy situation. And it's meant to be goofy, but the very best part of that bit was, and look what we do to Leonardo. And Leonardo's on a recliner going, hi. And Shredder's like, wait, I thought you guys were supposed to mess with Leonardo. And the foot soldiers are like, And then they have a still, it's basically a Photoshop of Leonardo DiCaprio walking through the park, and they drop a piano on him. And Shredder goes, close enough.
Oh, that is awesome.
So that right there, that was one of those literal moments where I LOL'd.
Yes. You literally laughed out loud.
Yes. I think the only current cartoon that I think is captured people's imaginations currently is, believe it or not, a My Little Pony cartoon.
Really?
Yeah.
I am not familiar with that.
It's called My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. And it's done by the person who did the Powerpuff Girls, Codenamed Kid Next Door, and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Okay.
The same person did those 3 shows. And it's basically got a huge following.
Is it kind of a redoing of My Little Pony?
It's basically an updated version, a whole new show.
Okay. Because, I mean, regardless of whether we watched it or not, it was a successful show.
Yeah,
I mean, we remember the name at least.
Well, yeah. I mean, granted, it was that was one of those things where it's in that 80s era where it's a show to promote a product.
But even still, we were boys, and boys don't watch girl shows.
No.
So it's not like we watched it. But, I mean, we at least knew of the show.
No, but this is actually, from what I've gathered about this show, I know I'm ranting about a show that is like, oh, it's for little girls. But actually, yes, where you'd be wrong.
Huh.
Believe it or not. Because the way it actually kind of has an Animaniacs sort of feel to it. In terms of, it's written for kids, and granted, most of the cast is girls.
Right.
However, some of the things the way it's written, older audiences have a bigger following than the little kids do.
Oh, wow.
And on top of that, a large portion of male viewers are attached to the show.
Okay.
So much so that there's a term for it.
Okay.
Where if you are a boy and you love My Little Pony, you are a brony. And the makers of the show have actually incorporated some of the thing because it has such a huge fan following that they've actually embraced the term brony and actually renamed one of their characters based on someone's suggestion on it because it was a background character that I can't believe I remember all this from reading on Wikipedia. It's like, why is this so popular all of a sudden? Because I go to this website called ICANN Has Cheeseburger, and it has all these internet names attached to it, and that's part of it now. So I'm like, what is this all about? And I was reading about it, and there's this character that initially didn't have a name, but when it was first appeared, it had an animation error where one of its eyes was offset, where it kind of looked like it had like the Google eye. Right. And someone caught that and put a name up, and their initial name for it on the actual show was Ditzy something or other. But the person on the internet called them Derpy Hooves. And Derpy Hooves. And the animators and creators of the show were like, you know what? We like that better. We're sticking with that.
So the fans gave the character a name.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
And it's currently has one season up. It's on the hub, so we don't get the channel. So I couldn't watch it even if I wanted on TV.
It might be online.
It is. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
Because I have seen brief clips of it because people post like, it's this, and I'm like, it's kind of funny. I might watch this one day just to check it out. Because like the brief things you see out of context is like, yeah, it's kind of funny.
All right then.
Of course, the thing I always remember like from the internet things is when people will do like the fist bump and they're bronies, it's bro hoof.
Wow.
I kid you not, there's a huge fan base for it now, and it's only came out like last year.
This is insane.
And it's huge, believe it or not. And again, the only reason I know it is because I go online a lot.
Yeah.
Because obviously I didn't have the channel, but there you go. So there is hope for some animation apparently.
In the form of My Little Pony.
In the form of My Little Pony.
Go figure. Go figure. That's pretty crazy.
Because really, I mean, like I haven't seen a lot of it, but like the new Looney Tunes show kind of leaves something to be desired.
Yeah, it does.
So it's like
it feels like it's trying too much.
It's like, come on, guys, we've seen your work. You can do better than this.
Yes, and it's one of those things where honestly, I'd rather watch the same stuff that we know we like. Like, I can sit there and watch Wile E. Coyote chase the Roadrunner all day.
Those are great.
With the different gadgets and contraptions that always backfire on them. So you don't need to try something new. Just go with that. A 4 or 5 minute cartoon of that. I'm fine.
You know what I remember now? And this goes right back to Animaniacs.
Okay.
It was when the Animaniacs meet Albert Einstein, and they do the Acme song. And then they spell Acme backwards, and Yakko makes his A funny. It looks like a 2. And so when you spell it backwards, E equals MC squared.
Right. That's kind of cool.
So yeah, Acme. Buy it! And explode.
You know what's really, really funny?
Does not work on Roadrunners.
No. It's really, really funny. Okay. You're gonna enjoy this. When I was 96, 97, I think I was 14.
Okay.
We'll go with that. That sounds pretty good.
So early teenage years.
Early teenage years. We went up to visit my aunt and uncle who live in New Jersey.
Joyzy.
They don't have a Jersey accent though, oddly enough. I think that because they live in like the middle of nowhere. Like they lived in a place called Cowtown. Like where all the Jersey cows were at. Because they have a farm. Or a pasture land or something.
There's a literal Cowtown?
Yes, there is a place called Cowtown, New Jersey.
Wow.
Yes. It gets better.
Okay.
So we go to the store. We go to the local grocery store for something, right?
Okay.
And there on the shelf is Acme cereal. I kid you not. There is actually a brand called Acme. And I look at it, I'm literally like, wait, this is real?
Where's a coyote now? I expect Wiley to show up and buy this.
I know.
And then chomp on it and explode for no reason.
I think I may have asked my mom, hey, Mom, where are the mallets? And the rocket skates.
This better come with a free rocket skate.
Or at least send in a couple proofs of purchase.
Or, let me save up for a catapult.
There you go. I was completely floored by the fact that there was actually an Acme product brand. And of all places, New Jersey.
Well, why not? New Jersey has, from Kevin Smith movies, fake products, so why not?
That's true.
Like nails, cigarettes. It's like, nails in your coffin, cigarettes. Anyway, that's kind of, I think, all we can say about these
I think that is
cartoons. I mean, there were others that were part of this animation renaissance that the Warner Brothers produced, but honestly, I don't remember them as clearly. Like, I remember Hysteria a little bit, but not a lot. I don't think I watched that show a whole lot.
I watched it a couple times. The only two things that I remember are Big Fat Baby and the Shot Heard Round the World.
Which was also later used the exact same way. The one I remember, which was the Mount Krakatoa.
Yeah.
The loudest volcano in the world. They also had a series called Road Rovers, I think it was.
Oh, Road Rovers was awesome. Well, it was awesome in a bad way. Sorry.
Okay. Awesome in a bad way.
Well, let me refer. Yeah, awesome in a bad way. Like you even at the time, I could tell it was poking fun at things and cheesy. Mm-hmm. But I still loved it because the basic premise was the show was that it took these different breeds of dogs and it transdogmified them into humanoid dogs. And they had a German Shepherd, a Doberman, who clearly had an Arnold Schwarzenegger accent.
Yeah.
And they had, I think, a Golden Retriever was like your main leader guy, and they had a Collie was like the girl, and she had an Irish accent.
They had a sheepdog, I remember.
Yeah, they had a sheepdog that for some reason he didn't transdogmify the same way the others did. Like he couldn't talk. He was able to walk on two legs. That was it. Whereas the others got more human-like.
Didn't they have an Alaskan hound or something?
Probably, I think so.
He had ice vision, I think.
I think so.
The only one I clearly remember...
I think he had a Russian accent, actually.
Yeah, the only one I clearly remember was one they didn't actually put in the dog of a fire thingamajiggy.
Okay.
Which was like a Rottweiler.
Yeah.
They had him on...
Because he was in like the cage setup with like the muzzle like...
Well, his name was Muzzle, and he had a straight jacket on.
Yeah.
Because he was foaming at the mouth.
Yeah.
I remembered him.
But I remember the villain. I forget his name, but he coughed a lot and always would ask for lozenges.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. I remember like that show bombed. It didn't last a season.
No, it didn't last. But I enjoyed the humor of it.
What also like lasted, I think, even less was a show called Detention.
Yeah, I remember the name. But then again, who wants to watch Detention?
Yeah, so not all the Warner Brothers things became hits.
There was also a show called Spy Dogs. I don't know. I don't remember if that was a Warner Brothers animation.
I don't remember Spy Dogs at all.
But Spy Dogs was actually kind of funny because there was at one point where the dog's in the backyard just rolling around and it looks like it's scratching itself and it's really sending like coded signals up to this spy dog satellite up in the sky. And like there's this one bit where the dog goes into the doghouse and it like shuts the door and it really goes down into like this secret hideout.
Wasn't this a movie?
No.
Wasn't this Cats versus Dogs?
No, this was a cartoon. This is a 2D cartoon.
Yeah, I have absolutely no memory of this.
Yeah.
The only other dog cartoon I remember is Dog City, where the intro was puppets, and then it kind of had like a Dick Tracy, he had like a detective feel.
Yeah, so like Dick Tracy.
Dick Tracy, but it had a kind of like a film noir setting for it.
I don't remember that one. I may have seen.
But I don't remember if that's
preview for it.
I don't remember if that's Warner Brothers either. That might be a Fox cartoon. I honestly don't remember. I haven't thought of that show in a dog's age. But I'm ching.
To the doghouse with you.
Oh, throw me a bone here. Lap that one up, huh?
If you can't tell, we enjoy dog puns.
We just like puns to begin with.
Well, yes. But dog puns are even funnier for some reason. I don't know why.
Ruby, Ruby, Ruby. Anyway, before we ramble on too much, I think we should just end it here.
Yes, I think we should.
But final thoughts, those WB cartoons were really awesome, really made an impact on our childhood. So if you haven't seen them at all, there's definitely clips of them on YouTube, but do it justice, and at least they're on Netflix, I'm sure. So
Yeah.
if you don't want to buy the DVD, watch an episode or two on TV or online
Yeah,
and see for yourself.
yeah. But then I think realistically, once you get hooked, you're going to want to go out and buy the DVD if you can afford it.
And if nothing else, hunt down the songs we mentioned. What were the name of the songs again?
They were called Wacko's America and the Nations of the World. Brought to you by Yakko Warner.
So definitely check those
You
out.
can tell I listen to that one a lot.
Mm-hmm. And
Unfortunately, you cannot find the albums, because there were actually 3 or 4 albums that they made. You cannot find any one of them on iTunes.
sadness.
I know.
I guess there's always eBay.
Yeah, sure. Or Amazon.
Or Amazon, or something along those lines. Anyway, I'm Andrew Felson.
And I'm Matthew Puetz.
It's been surreal. Freaks out!
Freaks out! The content of the Freakacast is copyright to Andrew Felson and Matthew Puetz. All characters belong to their respective owners. A full list of music used will be provided on the website. This podcast is for entertainment use only. Copyright 2011.
Freaks in, freaks out.
We're tiny, we're toony, we're all a little loony. And in this cartoony, we're invading your TV. We're comic dispensers, we crack up all the censors. On action adventures, get a dose of comedy. So here